Good morning and welcome again to the Veterans Forum. Today is the 11th of December 2009 and time is going by fast, I guess. This is another Veterans Interview program. For those of you who don't recognize the program, we have been trying to get all of the guys and gals who served in any branch anywhere in the world, if they can and will, to come on and share some of their stories, their experiences, because the bottom line, it sounds silly, but it's true. If you don't tell your story, nobody else will. And every time that we've had a story being told or shared by some of these guys and gals, it's amazing. You won't find a lot of the stuff in history books, but they did it. And that's what we're trying to record, so that everybody's action, no matter where you were or what you did, the bottom line, you had a job to do, and you did it. Today, Paul Bartlett will share some of his work and experiences with you. I will say no more, introduce him, and then we'll get the show on the road. Welcome, my friend.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're nice and warm today.
My pleasure.
Amen. If you will tell us your name, your last name and spell it, and then your rank, service, discharge, and dates of service.
Sure. My name's Paul E. Bartlett, and I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, in January of 1944. And after that, my folks moved up to New Hampshire, where I spent the good portion of my life until high school. I joined the military out of New Hampshire after spending a couple years in Alaska. I came back because I got one of those little greetings from the government and decided that, you know, I'm going to enlist rather than go wherever they want me to go. So I researched that and I joined the Army into Army Aviation Maintenance School, helicopters, in 28th of May, 1964.
Can I interrupt you, if you will?
Sure.
You've zip right through some of the most important part of your life. I'd like, if you will, go back and tell us, what was your childhood like, if you can, any brothers and sisters, any of your family in the service? How was it growing up prior to getting into the service?
Yeah, my dad just went into the military in about 1919, I think it was, right after the First World War. He served, and he served as a merchant seaman. My oldest brother, Charlie, was in the Army and went to ROTC, University of New Hampshire. My brother John was in the Navy during Korea. My brother Pete was in the Army but after Korea, into the 50s. And then my sister Jane was an Army nurse.
Wow.
My mother was never in the military, but she became a nurse.
She was in the military.
Right.
She was the military.
Right. And well, my family goes back to 1639. My ninth great-grandfather came to Guilford, Connecticut from England and lived was actually worked up to be a pretty influential man in Guilford, Connecticut. And so our family has been around this neck of the woods for quite a time.
Yeah.
And let's see, my education, I initially went to school in Connecticut. I went to a small schoolhouse in Greenfield Hill, Connecticut. And then we moved back to New Hampshire, and I went to a 3-room schoolhouse there.
Oh, expanded, huh?
Right. It was a very new experience, but a very great one because of the individual attention you got from the teachers and my learning. And from there, we didn't have school buses when I went to high school, so for a while I had to walk to school 10 miles to Concord. And not every day, but there were times where I had to go the whole distance, but frequently I would get picked up or get a ride, and so it was pretty interesting through the winters and in the summer. But
ever get snowbound and couldn't make it either way?
Not really. You know, back then it just seems like we didn't get bothered so much by how much snow we got. You just toughed it out and did it. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But after graduating from high school in 1962, I went to Alaska. I went with a group of YMCA group out of Keene, New Hampshire, and they were doing a round trip up to Alaska and back, and I contacted them and said, do you think I can go halfway and kind of act as a counselor or whatever, or helper? And they did, and I paid my halfway fare, and that's how I got to Alaska.
Where in Alaska?
In Fairbanks,
Fairbanks,
and
okay.
most of the time in the interior of Alaska. And I had a brother, my brother John, who I didn't know very much because he was away a lot when I was growing up. He was in the Navy, and so I lived with them for a while and worked in Alaska for a couple of years. Went to technical school in Chicago for a little while on automotive tune-up. And then I got my notice, draft notice, and went back to New Hampshire, and then debated what I was going to do. And like I said, I wanted to choose where I wanted to be rather than be told.
Yeah.
So I enlisted for Army Aviation. And following that, I went
When did you, where did you enter the service, and what was it like if you were going through boot camp and the change
Sure.
of lifestyle?
Oh, it was very interesting. I went from New Hampshire, was bused down to Manchester, I think it was, and then we ended up being bused down to Fort Dix, New Jersey, where I had basic training. And then following that, I went to advanced training in Fort Rucker, Alabama, for 3 courses in Army Aviation helicopter maintenance.
Oh, so you did get your druthers then.
Oh, absolutely.
Good.
I was absolutely just exactly what I asked for. And I got more than I asked for, because I must have done well enough that they allowed me to go from their basic course in aircraft maintenance onto another course for light helicopter maintenance, and then actually into another course of medium helicopter maintenance, which was Sikorsky CH-34 Army version. And I still thought I was going to go shipped to Vietnam from there, because Vietnam was big right there in that time. But I wasn't. I came up on orders to go to Germany. And that was a pleasant surprise, because most of the men in the groups were going over to Vietnam.
Yeah, it wasn't good news.
Right. And so I was pleasantly assigned to Pirmesens, Germany, to a transportation unit, a CH-34 unit, the 26th Transportation Detachment, which had, I think we had probably around, I'm guessing about 10 CH-34s that were made in Stratford, Connecticut, and the one Bell, what was it, OH-13. And that was a very pleasant time. I was there by myself. I had bought a brand new Volkswagen, and I wasn't much of a drinker, so I would take the guys, home at night if they were at the guest house.
You were the designated driver.
Yes, yeah. And then I traveled around Europe while I was having that experience, to Italy and France, and up into the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Denmark, and Luxembourg, France.
Sounded like rough duty.
Yeah, it was. Well, the aviation was a lot better. They kind of cut above of some of the infantry people.
The
and
grunts,
yeah,
the
we
plotters.
rode places, rather than trudged across the ground, and stayed in a little better accommodation sometimes. And so it had some pluses for that.
Good.
And while I was there in Pirmesens working as a helicopter crew chief, I met a lot of great older Army warrant officers that had been around for a while, okay? And I talked with them and I observed them, and they let me fly a little bit, from,
stick?
Oh, absolutely. You get stick time. They were very, and then one thing led to another, and they said, well, you might ought to consider going to flight school. And I gave that some thought, and I said, you know what? I'll bet it'd be a lot safer flying myself than riding with someone else. At least I would have myself to blame if things went
nobody
bad.
to write home to.
Right. So that's why I changed my whole thought process and got out of maintenance and went directly to flight school. I applied and tested and was accepted. And during that time, I don't think they turned too many people down, because they needed a lot of helicopter pilots.
Yeah.
But
was that kind of like OCS, or just
Yeah, and
flight training.
it was because I went from, and actually an interesting fact is I crossed the ocean twice, getting to Germany in troop ships, the Rose and the Buckner, troop ships from the Second World War, and coming back on the return voyage to go to flight school, that was quite an experience. I fortunately didn't get seasick, but everybody on the ship was sick, and I would spend my days hiding out of KP and go up forward in the brig area of the ship, way up in the bow, and then they had a hatchway where I could get out near the water, and it was very, very rough. I mean, it was so bad that the stern of the ship would come out of the water and the prop would vibrate the whole ship, and the bow would go underwater. And we were making about 4 knots crossing the Atlantic in February, I think it was January or February. And so that was a thrilling ride. I would show back up time to eat, and that was about it.
To that point, I'm butting in, I shouldn't, but I'm nosy. Did they ever have abandoned ship drill on that return voyage? And if they did, what was it like?
Yeah, I guess they did. You know, basically it was, you know, they have drills to get ready to put on your life preserver and go to certain stations and things like that. And it really didn't bother me. You know, I felt comfortable. A lot of guys weren't, you know, but for whatever reason, I never got seasick and never have.
I wasn't concerned more of the sea, but the hypothermia, when you hit that cold water in that time of the year,
you've got
maybe 5 minutes unless you got a safety suit on, and you're gone.
Well, just this is a little sideline, but I spent 20 years as an Alaska State Trooper, and I almost drowned in the Bering Sea one time off of Diomede Island and a skin boat that sunk. So I know what the cold water feels like.
That's good enough. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Then I went off to flight school. Went to Fort Rucker, Alabama. Actually, first Fort Walters, Texas, was the primary training facility or place for most of the helicopter pilots during that era, in '66 and even before that. And then we spent a matter, I think it was like 4 or 5 months there, and getting immersed totally into all kinds of subjects, including what you referred to earlier as maybe, you know, was this like OCS or, you know, training school? Well, yes, Warrant Officer Candidate School was of that nature. They pushed you pretty hard to get the guys disciplined and teaching them to be officers, even though we're warrant officers. So there was a lot of that, and a lot of you know, making sure you keep your Second World War barracks cleaned and things like that. And so we had officer training along with aviation courses, weather, navigation. You could go on and on. And then it was later on when we started getting the theory. Then we started in with flight, a little bit of flight training, and I trained in a Hiller H-23. It was I liked it very much as a helicopter, and later years flew them commercially. And that was my training helicopter. They had others, they called them Hughes TH-55, that other flight classes were taking training in. There was hundreds and hundreds of helicopters at Fort Walters for primary training.
How was the feeling the first time you grabbed that stick?
It was quite a thrill, actually. I still have a little certificate. This was issued for my first, they call it motionless flight, you know, a hover bug. They give you a little card and, on a particular, the day that you actually were able to hover it yourself.
And that's your solo in effect.
Right, well, of hovering it, because, you know, soloing it goes a little one step further because it involves, you know, taking off and landing and yes.
Coming in control.
But just to hover was a little specific thing they gave you a little award for, and I still have that.
Good.
Yeah.
You lit it right up when you said that.
Yeah.
The memories come back, you know what I mean?
It does. And from that point, when you got to a point where we did training in pinnacle landings, like landing on top of hilltops, and a different kind of flying. It wasn't just in the traffic pattern and approaches, and although that was the start, but a little bit later we got into a little more advanced before we went to Fort Rucker, Alabama, where that was the section that we would take and get tactical training in helicopter operation, and also instrument training in a Bell 08 or TH-13, which was a training helicopter strictly for instruments. You had the pilot, and then you had the student, and I would fly from, we'll say, the right seat and use the instruments, and he would be the other side or the other way around. I can't remember even now. But we got that training, and we had to have enough instrument training to be competent to be issued what they called a tactical instrument ticket. And the Army had several standard and advanced type tickets, and this was very basic one, just so we knew how to get ourselves out of trouble and make instrument approaches, but the proficiency level wasn't as great as it was for, someone who's trained on and on.
Now, again, I keep interrupting, but
It's all right.
This training now, is it just for, if you will, having command and control of a helicopter, or are you training in for troop transport, supply transports, medevac, that kind of stuff? Or do you have to go through growing stages before you can qualify for those kind of jobs?
Well, in the training operation at Fort Rucker, when I was there, we had the UH-1 Bell Iroquois helicopter was our primary trainer, besides the other instrument one I talked to you about. And in that, we experienced the same kind of advanced training I was talking about, the pinnacle landings, confined areas, landing in confined areas. They were heading us to be able to do pretty much anything in that venue that you just referred to: medevac, resupply, and just combat assault, combat assaults, troop transport, absolutely. And where you got the real meat of the matter is when you got to Vietnam and they married you up with someone who'd been in country for many more months and was an aircraft commander, and you started out for several months flying in co-pilot seat and absorbing everything you could about how to stay alive, from someone who still was.
Yeah, that's a good teacher.
Yeah. Good
teacher.
Right. But after Rucker, a caveat that goes towards the credit to the Army and to myself in some degree is I thought, well, I'm here, I've had all this maintenance training, I'm going to Vietnam, why not apply to go to aircraft maintenance officer school? So I did on my own. I put in a requisition, right, to go, and I did it plenty time in advance, and that was the secret. I found it didn't take too long to figure out that if you ask for things way in advance, they have an opportunity to respond. Okay. And so I did, and I was given sent to Fort Eustis, Virginia, right after flight school, and in Fort Eustis, Virginia, was the Army Transportation Center, and there I got 5 weeks of training in aircraft. It was a short course because of my background. They didn't put me through the long course, so I had a short course, 5 weeks in aircraft maintenance officer training and flight, testing, and from there I went to Vietnam. And well, that was a real charging experience because thinking back, letting down into this Tan Son Nhut Air Base on a jet, it was a very, very lonely feeling. We had no idea what to expect, and landing there and getting on the ground, and it was very apprehensive for quite some time. Until you kind of got your feet on the ground a little bit and figured out, really a little bit of what was going on, because the whole situation was very confusing.
Volatile, yeah.
Very confusing and very volatile, and a lot going on in a lot of different directions. When in Vietnam, I was stationed with, and I was assigned to, the 71st Assault Helicopter Company, which was a part of the 145th Combat Aviation Battalion. And the 145th was based in Bien Hoa, Vietnam, which is just, I think it was north and east of Saigon away. And initially got there in March of '67, and pleasantly surprised, it took me down to where we were going to stay, and we were living in a villa, an old French villa. And we had our own dining facility in the villa. This was just the officers in the company. And we had 2 men to a room. We had what we call later hooch maids, but basically on economy people, girls that come in to clean your rooms and make your bed. And I mean, it was pretty classy until about a month went by. And they decided to put our company up in Chu Lai. And with that, the whole company moved, lock, stock, and barrel, with all of our maintenance people, our motor pool, all our helicopters, everybody. We went north to Chu Lai, Vietnam, which was the Army was starting the Americal Division up there to support some of the infantry divisions that were being sent there, because it became more active. And so we joined the 14th Combat Aviation Battalion in Chu Lai. We grouped with many other companies, helicopter companies that came from other areas too. And so we formed up the 14th Combat Aviation Battalion in Chu Lai. And there, of course, we were in, as well as being in the Bien Hoa area, we did combat assaults and supported the Australians and the South Vietnamese Army. And, you know, in doing those kind of things, you end up maybe doing a medevac, because you get a call for a medevac, you got a hot medevac, you go in, you pick up, you know, guys have been shot up and take them to the hospital, or maybe to the morgue, which is, was a pretty sad experience, a very, very sad experience to be exposed to all this, and then a lot of it under fire. And you never know when you were going to take rounds with the helicopter or just being shot at. And we had our gunships, which supported us when we did combat assaults. And generally that would be like a team of 3 helicopters, probably a couple with rockets and machine guns, and maybe one with just rockets, and support our insertion and getting in and out of LZs, landing zones.
Oh yeah.
So, and the same thing occurred in Chu Lai area. The Charlie, the North Vietnamese, Viet Cong, they were pretty well entrenched up there. And I can remember one night on January 5th, 1968, when one of our gunships got shot down, and they called it Happy Valley. Of course, it really wasn't Happy Valley, but Frank Anton and Frank Carson and Bob Feaster and
Bob Feaster?
Feaster.
Oh, Feaster.
Feaster and Ken, I think it was Lewis, I can't remember his first name. They were shot down, and 3 of them were captured that night, and Frank Carson was able to escape and evade, and he made it back to the company lines, actually, by, I don't know where he got them, but he found some, Vietnamese clothing, and he hunched over and walked along the dikes during the day. You know, he was a dark-colored person anyway, and I think he took, mud and stuff and moved on him, and so he wouldn't get detected as being a white man And he was pretty tall, Frank is still, and he would bend over and kind of walk like an old person through over the dikes, and made his way into some friendly areas, and he was repatriated in several days to us. But Frank and Feaster and Lewis spent 5 years plus as POWs.
Ooh.
And three of them in the jungle camps of the South, which were absolutely horrible. Frank wrote a book, Why Didn't You Get Me Out? Because when he got home, he found out that the government knew where they were the whole time.
And they didn't try to get him?
Didn't come and get him. But he wrote a great book of his experience, and of course, I can understand his being very bitter about all that, you know. But he's still working. He went on in his life, and he became an airline pilot and flew for a whole American Airlines for a career. And so, you know, he got it together. The other two, they all survived.
That's good.
You know, and I'll tell you right now, I was overflying their helicopter that night, and I was way up high and running with lights out, because they got shot down right in the middle of a North Vietnamese regiment. And of course, there was absolutely no ability to be able to get in there, and unless you're absolutely suicidal, to try and get them out. And as a matter of fact, like I say, I saw them there. I heard radio transmissions, and anyway, some weeks later, you know, we got a rumor that they're humping rice on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, you know, and whatnot. But you know, back then we knew that the enemy would execute the guys immediately, especially gunship pilots, because they didn't want them to come back and be shooting at them, because our gunships were very feared by the enemy. And so I tell you, it wasn't until about 1996 or 1994, I'm sorry, when I really learned that they lived.
Good news, though.
It was good news, but you know, Bob, I spent all those years not wanting to know.
Yeah, I know.
Because I was scared that they didn't make it. And I didn't want to hear it.
I know.
But, you know, they did, and it was absolutely moving to me.
Yeah. Now, I've heard some terms. Maybe it doesn't apply to a helicopter group, but some of the guys that I've talked with, the only two so far numb like yourself, they were members of QRT, which is a quick response team. Is your medevac, in effect, a quick response team? You get a call to get an LZ, and you got to get in and
absolutely, get out. Absolutely. And matter of fact, I'll tell you just a little story here about, and I wish I could spout his name out right at the top of my head, but that next morning where Frank was shot down, that valley became fogged in really bad, and nobody was able to get in. Well, we had troops on the ground in different locations there that were stationed there, and they got shot up really bad, and there was, I think, about 40 guys that needed to be medevaced out of there, and there was one pilot that made his way in by just hovering right across the top of the treetops and blowing it away, and found his way in, and he did it, I think, I don't know how many times, but he won the Congressional Medal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's damn good. But we're getting a little choked up here. But
yeah, but that's okay, you know.
It's okay.
I found that, you know, after all these years, most of us, the Vietnam guys, have chosen not to say a word.
I know.
And we have not spoke, and I never did either. For many, many years, nobody asked, and I never said anything. Because it was kind of a lousy, the way we got home and came home.
You got dumped on.
And it was pretty sad when, you know, it didn't happen to me, but others, it's happened to. They got spit on, they got called baby killers, and you name it. You know, I wasn't far from My Lai when that happened. Matter of fact, I left my unit. Chu Lai is not far from My Lai, and some of the people in our unit were involved in a good way with that and trying to resurrect things that were bad and wrong. But it was just southeast of us, and I had just left when that happened.
Lincoln.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, the support, you know, people in medevac pilots. I had a bunch of guys that I went to flight school with that went into dust off, and what an admirable operation. We all were dust off pilots if need be, but those guys, they specifically knew what they were in
what's
for.
dust off? So the rest
Dust
of the
off
show.
is the medical evacuation of wounded, you know, troops.
Under fire.
Yeah, usually under fire. I mean, they try and make it so you can get in and get out without getting shot up. But many times those guys put their necks on the line, and many of them never came back.
No.
Because they were fighting to get in and get the wounded and get them out, and they're one heck of a devoted group. And another thing I'd like to say is that I have extreme admiration for combat medics and nurses.
Amen.
Who have not been properly thanked for their service.
To that point, I'll ask you in public if you know of any of those guys and gals in your association, and they can and will.
Yeah.
Come here, because
Well, I know.
I want to get every guy and gal
Yeah.
recognized for what they've done, not to wave the flag, but just so
Right.
people know what the hell the
Absolutely,
story was.
absolutely. Because, you know, and I do know one right here, Martha Green, lives right here in town. She's a member of our outfit. She and her husband both. He was a retired colonel. She was an Army nurse, and they were both in Chulai where I was.
Oh.
And they're great people. They're down in Florida right now, but you know,
And they come back north.
I'm going to
Get 'em.
pump Martha to come see you because
Thank you.
she's a great person. And those people, you have to stop and think. You know, they were immersed in this every day, seeing guys shot up,
Parts of
wounded,
guys, yeah.
pieces and parts dying every day. You know, and you talk about post-traumatic stress syndrome, etc. I mean, those people should be the front of the line.
Amen.
In the front of the line, there's no question, because they put it right out there, and they saw it. And as a helicopter pilot, sure, we saw it, you know, occasionally, but not every day.
Yeah.
You know?
But you still had your tail out the window.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. We always get near the end of your tour. You know, you start counting down. You have your short timers calendar,
Oh, yeah.
and you're marking the days off, and just hoping and praying that you're going to get, you know, make it out.
Amen.
And yeah, it was interesting.
Well, we could go on like this for hours, I think. But how long was your tour, and then when did you come home, and what did you do afterwards, if you will?
Okay,
I'm
sure.
just interrupting, but
No, absolutely. But actually, I should interject that I went over in March of '67 and to Chulai, or to Benoit, and then we went to Chulai in April. And when I got there, I found out that commissioned officers got $50 a month more flight pay than warrant officers. And I, being kind of a Yankee, you know, that I like the buck, you know, and I said, well, boy, that stinks. And so I decided to apply for a direct commission while I was in Vietnam, and I did. And I went to a board, and lo and behold, in January, I got promoted to second lieutenant in a battlefield commission in Vietnam. So there I was a warrant officer for almost 2 years, but not quite, or less than that, I guess it was. But I got a direct commission in Vietnam, and during that, even prior to that time, I put in for an assignment in Alaska because I wanted to go back to Alaska.
Oh.
That's where I came from, you see.
Yeah.
So, and I had family there, and because I did what a lot of guys didn't do, a timely application, it actually came through.
good.
So I had a commission as a transportation officer, and stayed in the same spot because I was a aircraft maintenance officer, and took a different job classification, but it was there.
Did come up with the bucks, though.
Yeah, I got the $50.
That's the bottom line.
Well, that was kind of foolish, but that was really the only reason I did it. I was in spite. It was spitefulness, because I thought that's terrible. What makes the warrant officer's life worth $50 less than the commissioned officers.
And the grunt.
Yeah, you're dead, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, then I went from there to Alaska, and from Vietnam in March of '68, and we went through the Tet Offensive, and when the enemy blew up our ammo dump, Satchel charged all the ammo dumps in there. I'll tell you, that was one day, it was one I will never, ever forget, because when they first started with rockets coming in, 122 millimeter rockets, and they were hitting around in different places on the base and near where we were hooched and where we lived. And then they started blowing up our ammo dumps. They infiltrated through and Satchel charged all of our big ammo facilities that were covered over, locked doors, and it rained molten metal for quite a long time, because what they did, these 500,000 pound, 2,000 pound bombs were going off, and it all went up in the air, and the metal roofing on the hooches, what we lived in, which was just a metal roof, screened on all sides, and we slept in there. But you could hear the metal, molten metal. It was drying and cool by then, but it would rain on top of the roof. You could hear it just like rain.
Like shrapnel.
And absolutely, it was what it was, but it was just minute. But there was so much, the sand where we lived on the beach in Chulai was completely black.
Ooh.
So when you walked, that the metal would go back down into the sand, but there was so much metal that they'd blown up that it rained metal for, I don't remember how long, but it was quite significant.
Amen.
Yeah, I remember heading for my bunker when they started that. I never remember opening the door to the hooch. I must have gone right through it, because I knew that it was important to try and get into cover, but even a 122 rocket would have gone right through where we were, but that'd be a direct hit. But I never got wounded. I didn't get a Purple Heart, which I'm actually glad of. There's just tons of guys that, deserved that medal and earned it rightfully so. Yeah.
We've got some time. I'd like to change gears a bit. After you left Alaska, when you got home and became a PFC, proud free civilian again, what did you do? Did you stay in aircraft-related businesses, and how did it work out to where you are today?
Yeah, thank you. When I got up to Alaska, I got out of the military, and I flew commercial helicopters for 2 years.
Pipeline?
Yeah, actually, that's right. It was before the pipeline really was going, but it was during the time where we were surveying for the pipeline and the road. And I worked on that quite a bit, and plus wildlife projects, tagging polar bear off of Point Barrow, caribou, and moose. Yes, it was. There's a TV program on it back when there was a Bill Bird's Animal World or something. Yeah, and we did.
Were you in it?
Yeah, I was on the program.
Movie star.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've never even seen it myself. My nephews would call me every so often years ago and say, "Oh, we just saw you on television," but I don't have a copy of it.
Maybe we can scrounge one.
Yeah, but it was a good time. I did a lot of other projects, working with geologists and taking them around, flying them around different spots in Alaska in the mountains and knocking for rocks and stuff. And then within 2 years of that, I discovered that, and I had gotten married and had a son. And within that time frame, I discovered that, this flying all over the countryside isn't what it's all cracked up to be, and wouldn't be too good for raising a family. So I applied to be an Alaska State Trooper. And so I did that, and I left. I built a cabin in Fairbanks, and I ended up selling that and moving to Anchorage, because that's where most of the guys got hired on. So I figured, well, I'm going to go down there.
Go where the action is.
That's it, and I did, and I got hired. And I think a lot of my military experience of being a helicopter pilot in the Army helped me in getting on. Of course, there were some veterans benefits too, for points, and testing and whatnot. So that was a plus, and so I joined the troopers. And
did they have any kind of airborne equipment that they may have assigned you to?
They did, and for the most part, I flew for 20 years for them, but mostly in fixed wing, not helicopters.
Okay.
Skis, floats, and wheels, all of them. Yeah, my patrol car was a Cessna, generally a 185 Cessna on floats, wheels, and skis. Yeah.
Now,
so
this is a personal question, I guess. They all are. How was it flying when you get, because I know the weather changed there so damn fast. You blink once and you're crystal clear, then you're white out.
Yeah.
Did you have any experiences like that where you had to come from and find some place to get down safe?
Oh, absolutely, almost all the time. And that's probably the one single biggest problem area where people end up crashing is they're fighting the weather and not respecting it. And it's happened to me hundreds of times where I was out flying in weather that probably you shouldn't have been, but as a trooper, I kind of pushed it. I pushed it a little bit further than I probably should, but you know, you got to still keep common sense involved.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't respect the weather, then it'll get you. Oh, yeah. And it has gotten many people. And I usually end up going out and cleaning up the mess after a crash or whatever. So I ended up feeling like I was more of a coroner than I was, you know.
It wasn't a rescue, it was a recovery.
Yeah, most of the times.
That's a bad switch.
Yep.
It's a bad switch.
Yep.
Okay, when did you come back to the States, if you will? The South 88.
South 48?
Yeah.
That was 1990. Well, actually, I retired in 94. And that's what I was planning on doing, was coming back here, and I ended up meeting my present wife, or again, because we grew up together in New Hampshire when she was 3 and I was 6, and our families were
childhood
close.
Sweetheart.
We were friends, just childhood friends, and because, you know, at 6 and 3, and don't know much beyond that. But our family stayed friends for all of our lives, and anyway, Carolyn lived here in Stockbridge, and she had been separated, and I was separated in Alaska, and we got together, and we've been living here since then.
Happy union?
Yeah, right now we're having some problems, but that happens in everybody's life, I guess, and so we'll see what time tells about that.
Yeah. I know, I can't. Zip. It's your nickel. Now, what are you doing now to keep out of trouble?
Well, 1997, or 2007, I'm sorry, I got an idea to start a little business, and I'm also an aircraft mechanic, certified FAA mechanic, and I was working in Canaan, Connecticut at Wingworks down there. They rebuild antique airplanes. Mm-hmm. And one of the projects we had was to rebuild a Sikorsky HH-3, which in this case it was a Pelican from the Coast Guard, and it was going to be put into a building down in Morris, Connecticut, and used as a theme bed and breakfast, so to speak. It's very, very high end. But anyway, in doing that, part of my job was to cut the rotor blades, because we put it inside of a building and it had a domed roof, and we wanted the rotor blades to look like they were going right into the wall. So that's how I got the idea. My boss had me cutting those rotor blades, and I looked inside of the Sikorsky blade, and I said, well, it's gorgeous. So anyway, I thought about it and thought about the veterans, and decided that I would try and make helicopter rotor blade plaques. And put wings on them, and inlay the rotor blade into the wood, and it evolved and over a period of about a year and a half almost, that I was perfecting what I wanted to do.
Okay. We'll get into that, but I want 2 more questions, if you will, because time is going by so fast. When you get out now, have you joined any veterans organization like DAV or Legion?
Right. You know, initially, for all those years, I was a typical, maybe not typical, but Vietnam veteran who really didn't associate with any of those. And it wasn't really until I got the idea for my business that I started getting involved in those. I stayed away from them. I knew about the Vietnam Helicopter Pilots Association years and years ago, but for whatever reason, you know, I chose not to, you know, get
It's your
involved.
choice,
And you
buddy.
know, and mostly now because of my idea, and I patented my idea.
Oh.
I've joined them, and I'm a member of the Veterans of VFW, and I am also a member of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 65, right here in Pittsfield, and that has been. I discovered it more of a social thing, an enjoyable thing. I found a lot of brotherhood with them.
You can talk to the guys.
Right.
You know the words.
Yep. And it's strange, but in war, I found myself more connected to the veterans I was with in war for a year than some of the troopers I worked with for 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can't really explain it, but it's a bond it's almost hard to believe, you know. And meeting back with these guys, which my company found me when I moved out of Alaska, and the 71st Assault Helicopter Company found me and told me what they were doing, and they were having reunions every 2 years and whatnot. And I started and got involved in 1996, and I have not missed one yet.
Good. Good.
And it's a great group of guys. We all went through the same thing.
Yeah.
And when we talk to each other, we don't have to explain anything. We all know what
Amen.
what the answer was.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to kind of start wrapping things up. This has been one of the best shows. I shouldn't have put it that way, but I'd like you to tell us some of your citations, your ribbons, and so forth that we've got here. What are they, and how did you come by? You just didn't happen to pick them up. I know that.
I didn't expect anything, but the Bronze Star is basically one I got for meritorious service in Vietnam. It wasn't necessarily for a valor, but it was because I did a few extra things that a lot of guys didn't do, and I kind of think that some of it has to do with that. I invented and created a hot water heater when we were in Vietnam. So instead of getting cold water for our showers, I built a hot water heater out of 3 55-gallon drums, barrels, and I put a pipe in and brazed it on up through and up top, and put JP4 in the thing and fired it up, and I would take the water off at different levels, you know, so we had hot water showers when we got it all
So
right.
you're a hydraulic engineer then, huh?
No, fortunately, I had a lot of good upbringing and experience with my folks, my dad, and mechanically inclined, and so I just jumped in there and did it.
No, you should have been in the Seabees.
Yeah, well, I told you earlier.
I know, I had to get it in
that
there
was my
somehow.
second choice. I really was thinking hard about the Seabees. And then I got the air medal. I got 12 air medals, which a lot of guys got. It's unbelievable. Some of the because I sell my plaques. I put these coins in the things. The guy says, "Well, yeah, I've got 60 air medals." You know.
How many?
And 60 sometimes. You know, they have unbelievable numbers. Some of these guys. Some have been back and flew over there for 2 and 3 tours, you know. So I think it's like 25 hours of combat flying. You can get one, something like that, if my recollection's correct. But anyway, that is.
So you put some time in, though.
Yeah, everybody did.
Oh yeah,
everybody did. Yeah, I worked hard, and I also got a Meritorious Achievement Award over there for. That might have been more for the heater that I came up with, but
hot
but
water
I guess
always
I felt good about it because I got to use it too. See?
Yeah, okay, that's selfish.
So, but
What's
it
this
worked.
little guy here?
Oh, that's just a National Defense Service Medal. Everybody gets those that's in the service, and this is a Good Conduct Medal from when I was an enlisted man.
Okay, now that leads me to something else. The Good Conduct Medal, from some of the guys jokingly said, you know, never got caught, huh?
Yeah.
So we'll let that one say it. But on your chest, you've got 3 dog tags.
Yeah.
One
I
at
do.
a time, loud and clear, if you will.
Sure. I mean, if you ever run across the veteran that can't remember his numbers, you know, then you know he's really probably not a veteran. But my first one is RA 11429889. That was an enlisted one. And my warrant officer is W3154748. And my officer is 012334. I hope I don't mess that one up. 01233351. But anyway, it's pretty close.
You read it by braille. You weren't memorizing it.
But anyway, you know, because I was in, had 3 different ones. So I still carry them around.
You worked your way up the ladder.
Yeah, I mean, I did, and I did it, and I don't regret one single day that I spent in the military, because it's been an offshoot of what I went through has affected every facet of my life right to the present day.
Yeah, it all adds up.
It all adds up, and it's all a big plus. And I feel sorry for people that think that, oh, they just sent me here and sent me there. But you know, a lot of them didn't ask for anything, or didn't enlist for a particular thing. And you get what you asked for, you know, and
what you deserve sometimes.
And it's right. And I just can't say enough about, you know, the benefits, because all my flying, I mean, I flew for the state for 20 years. My GI Bill, after I got out in Alaska, I got all my fixed wing training, my instrument training, my multi-engine training, my float rating. All of this was on the GI Bill.
Yeah. Well,
and I mean, and it's affected my whole life. Now,
amen.
I can't say enough, you know, because it's been a big plus.
Now, talk about saying it up. How about your little ditty bag there, your helmet bag?
Oh, yeah, well, my helmet bag. This came from Vietnam with me. There aren't too many things. Matter of fact, I think this is about it. But
those are raunchy, isn't it?
It looks bad, but you know what? That's got class.
Yeah.
This is our unit in Vietnam, the Rattlers, the 71st, and that was made in country by local Vietnamese. And this was my maintenance company that I was with.
Did you get a good shot of that?
Anyway, the 151st Trans Detachment, and of course I was a warrant officer up here, a W1, and I was a butter bar second lieutenant, and then I made first lieutenant before I got out.
Great.
And this is the first Aviation Brigade patch, this blue one there, and
all kinds of
set of
stuff,
my wings as an aviator. But yeah, and then the other side is my unit in Alaska. That was
wait a minute, we got something hiding down here.
Oh, those are just little metal things.
Oh, just metal. Okay.
And this was the unit I was with, the 26th Transportation Detachment in Germany.
Okay.
In
they got a good shot of that
1965.
Okay.
And then the 18th Trans Detachment was a CH-21 helicopter outfit. I flew the old Banana helicopter in Alaska.
Oof.
And I was the CO, commanding officer of the 18th Trans Detachment, just before I got out of the military.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, we talked earlier, I just want to get one more thing. If you will show us that plaque, and then at the end, I'd like
sure.
to tell us a story, if you will, about the little kid that got your helmet.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, this is...
Get a good shot of this. This is important, I think.
Well, this is what I do, what I've created to help other veterans be able to talk about what they did and what they went through. You know.
Okay, just hold that. Go ahead.
It is something I kind of created. I inlaid the blades, and these are half-inch cross sections of Huey rotor blades. This is the UH-1 helicopter, the real deal that was the Vietnam War. And what I've done is I inlaid it into the wood, so I can have the placement every time. I put a plaque on there, so I can put in names and information on each person.
That's right here.
Right, and then I have the helicopter unit patch. I laser those on, and I laser the helicopters on. This happens to be a Chinook over there, which is a CH-47, and I put their wings in here. Whether this happens to be a master crewman's wings. So this gentleman, I just made this plaque yesterday.
Okay.
And it's going out today in the mail to Fort Worth, Texas.
Good.
And this gentleman is retiring from the FAA, and his service in Vietnam was in 1971 and 2.
71, 72.
And this is his Air Medal coin that I put in there.
Beautiful.
But anyway, it's to give the guys an opportunity to talk about, if they choose to, about their service in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And there's just a ton of them that still aren't talking. And
well, we hope we can get going.
Yeah,
here. Okay.
yeah.
Now, the end, if you will. The story about the little guy in your helmet.
Oh yeah, gee whiz.
Listen to this.
Couple weeks ago, I got an email from a 10-year-old boy in Michigan, and I've got the paperwork with his name on it, but his name is Lucas. And Lucas sent me an email and says, my dad took me to a gun show and I bought an old Army helmet. And when we got home, I looked at it and I could see a name in it. And he read the name off and it said SP4 Paul E. Bartlett. So they went on the internet and threw my name in there. And lo and behold, my business name, Heliplac, came up. And so he sent me this email and told me I'd got this helmet, it's got my name in it, and wanted to know if it was mine and whatnot. And I looked, because he took pictures, they took pictures of the name written in the helmet. And if this is truly mine, which it's not impossible that it is, but it would have had to come from Germany, because I was a Spec 4 in Germany in '65. However, if it really truly was mine, it's back here now and could have been surplused out. And I looked at the lettering and the writing, and it certainly looks like my handwriting. But anyway, we're treating it like it is, because it certainly has got my full name and my full rank. And I've been communicating with this young man, and it's been just a real blessing for both of us.
Good.
Talk about it.
They say in Swedish, thank you, Paul. And this has been a lot of fun.
Tack så mycket is the word, because I'm Swedish.
Oh, det är norsk.
Oh, wow.
Det är norsk. Folks, we've had a ball. We hope this has been something of interest to you too. But again, to all you guys like Paul from Nam, open up.
Yeah.
This is one way that we'll help you guys come home. Every way that we can, we will. Bob Stevens again saying thank you. Come and see us. Good luck.